And now a moment from Your History and Health Comes First with Dr. Richard Brown.
Welcome back to Your History and Health Comes First by Dr. Richard Brown. It is September 21st, 2022, and we're well into the school year, and the weather is about to change. It was 100 degrees yesterday in Omaha, but today the high is only about 77. So that's how the weather happens in Omaha, Nebraska. So today I want to change a bit and talk about something that's very important to us, something that we all must do, and none of us can not do it. What could that be? What is it that all humans do, but all humans cannot live unless they do this thing? And that is to eat. You must eat food. Of course, you have to drink water as well. But I want to talk about food specifically and talk about it in terms of our health, because it is so important that we eat the right food in order to maintain good health. The leading causes of death in the United States is heart disease, stroke, and cancer. And while some people are impacted by hereditary factors, many of these conditions are preventable, and they're related to what we eat and how much we eat. So we in America, we eat more meat, dairy, eggs, and fatty foods than we eat fruits and vegetables and grains and nuts. The public is heavily influenced by advertising on TV, in news magazines, in newspapers, and now by the internet. The power of marketing and administrating and advertising on TV is very, very huge in terms of selling products and services. Food, among other things, are crucial to the health of people. So the politics of it are huge. Politics are in everything. It's hard sometimes to determine or to agree that it's political, but I guarantee you that food is highly political, especially if you look at the history. The food industry pours billions of dollars into marketing and advertising to generate as much profit as they possibly can, selling products that may be of little nutritional value to the public. For many years, there was very little concern associated about and for the amount of sugar and salt and fat that's contained in food. They were little concerned about what was in foods, little concerned about whether it was healthy for children or for adults. However, if the food industry suddenly changed and started producing only food that has nutritional value and that prevents disease, it would upset the marketplace, and the profits for several sectors of the economy perhaps would be reduced and or lost. Some of these industries include the cattle industry, dairy industry, soft food industries. The industry workers and large corporations could be harmed if this sudden change took place. The pharmaceutical and healthcare industry would likely lose business as well if people stayed healthier for longer periods of time. Thinking about politics, one of the most recent changes that is going to have far-reaching involvement with the public is the Biden administration pushed for thousands of car charging stations to be built across the country. The previous administration focused on fossil fuels, and this change would not take place if the previous administration was in place. And this change, though, is going to have significant impact on many industries. If administration changes, this push for electric cars is going to change a lot of things. Now, also, I've been thinking recently that if technology moves as fast as it's been doing recently, then instead of electric cars only being able to go 200 miles or so without being charged, what happens if a battery is built that allow cars to go 1,000 miles before recharged? How long is that going to take? Is that going to take a year or two? And what's going to happen with all these charge stations that were built and money been spent on when that happens? There'll be criticism about, well, we should have waited, should not have spent all that money on those charge stations and waited till cars could go further. Well, such is the political implications and or controversy where food is concerned. It took more than 20 years to reduce the number of tobacco smokers in the United States. There are no more cigarette ads on TV. I remember when they were. And there are now warning labels on cigarettes. I remember when there was not. And consider that cigarette smoking is a habit and not an essential element of life. And it took nearly 3 generations before sustainable change occurred. You can imagine how long it's going to take to change the habits of people where food is concerned and their consumption. In recent years, I would say in about the last 10, maybe 15 years, some schools have discontinued the sale of soft drinks, candy bars, and food with little nutrition value in their vending machine. We know now through research and studies that have come out that a can of Coke or sweetened soda may have as many as 8 to 10 spoons of sugar in that 1/8 ounce can. And so, sugar generates a lot of energy and activity, which could contribute to some of the energy and activity that take place in schools that may be a little unnecessary and maybe contribute to some of the, all kinds of problems, including some of the fights and violence that take place in some schools. So more nutrition facts are printed on food labels, more fat-free choices, such as low-fat milk, now are available in grocery stores. More fast food chains offer healthier choices like salads, sweet potato fries, apple fries, and sugar-free drinks for kids. I mean, who would have thought 20 years ago that McDonald's would be offering salads or that Burger King would be offering salads? Before Consumer Reports and the public and Food and Drug Administration identified the fact that eating certain kinds of food could actually harm us, salads were not offered in some of the fast food restaurants. So there's more TV ads as well that are emphasizing the prevention of disease through eating proper foods. Absent federal and state laws, advertising on TV is one of the most influential methods of motivating people behavior regarding the food industry and food consumption products. Much of the marketing is unfortunately directed at children who spend a great deal of time in front of TV sets. Approximately 10 million people viewed the Super Bowl last year. You probably don't even know who won the Super Bowl last year, but there were some memorable ads that took place. As a matter of fact, those ads cost as much as $1 million a minute. So a lot of people watch the Super Bowl, a lot of money is spent on ads. And I remember a few years ago when I was heavy into looking at advertisements and nutrition and food, that as I watched the Super Bowl, I think there were about 55 commercials before halftime. Most of them promoted the automobile industry. There were 10 that touted food and sugary beverages, and only 2 that focused on exercise and nutrition. And I remember that I was most impressed with the Volkswagen ad. Now, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and I suspect it was unintentionally, the ad promoted health using an overweight dog. They pictured this dog who was too fat to fit through the pet door at this person's house. And they did not get to go out and chase cars because they were too fat. And he started exercising. They showed the dog swimming and showed the dog being on treadmills and playing games and eating fruit and vegetables. And of course, they showed later that he had lost weight and he had got to go through the pet door with ease. He started chasing cars and actually almost outran a Volkswagen. And yes, the ad was selling Volkswagen, but for those of us who are health conscious, we were very proud to see that true progress was being made toward prevention of illness and self-inflicting disease. So now I want to focus on an article by Bianca Alvarez. The title of the article was Yes, Food is Political. She says that while many aimless ads items into their shopping carts, most consumers aren't acknowledging the history behind their food and may not realize its political ties. Food is for consuming, but behind the product itself are years and years of rich history. Food is political, she said. So how can food be political? Well, must we politicize everything in today's day and age? Well, she explained just how some of these items in your fridge and pantry are a part of a political history and the impact the ties between food industry and government have on consumers' daily life. So she speaks of another individual by the name of Amy Sentimentes, PhD, food writer and assistant teaching professor at Penn State. She's introduced food and politics into her political science class. Her curriculum focuses on unpacking food production, distribution, and consumption. Food, she says, is political in so many ways, both implicitly and explicitly. So she talks about food guidelines. Food production is inherently political because so many political institutions are involved on the production side. The Food and Drug Administration is a government agency which offers both industry guidelines as well as regulation and enforcement of certain policies and laws within the world of food. She says that the U.S. government has been telling people what to eat for many, many years, for centuries. And the history of such advice reflects changes in the agriculture, food product development, and international trade, as well as in science and in medicine. So Paulette Goddard, professor at New York University, Marion Nestle, said in her book, Food Politics, that politics are continuously seen in the industry, and there's conflict between the industry and itself, as well as its messages promoting healthier country. These agencies may be inclined to favor one or the other as they aim to push the agendas into effect. He says the knowledge we have of these foods is given to us through the political system. Sentimente said that lobbyists, members of Congress, and other political actors are involved in shaping these dietary guidelines for us. She says that these lobbyists are able to accomplish their task through various means, including hard and soft money, which can come in forms of direct donations or gifts. So we know that money drives just about everything, absolutely drives the politicians. Many citizens, she says, throughout the nation live in food deserts. Food deserts are geographically areas in which there is limited access to nutritious and affordable food. This then changes the consumption pattern in comparison to one who may live in a food oasis, where these problems are seen on a daily basis. So our consumption patterns vary on social political levels, Sementes says, What foods we choose to eat are based not only on what food tastes like and our preferences, but what food we have access to in terms of where we live and the resources we have. Many individuals have been bringing awareness to the dangers of food deserts across America, including an internet area called Beyond Food Market. And on Instagram and on TikTok, you find some of these messages. So the creator of Beyond Food Market, Jose Rojas, has advocated for change in these areas, including his hometown, Chicago. He's hoping to see improvements in access to allergy, friendly, nutritious, and plant-based foods. Rojas continues sharing with his audience the realities of his underserved community. So let's talk about political parties. How are political parties associated with and are differentiated from food? Well, we associate different things with certain political parties. Going hand in hand with stereotyping, we often find specific food items associated with one party or another. In the most recent election, many worldwide took place to the internet to see various anonymous fringes and categories, and it was known as the Biden fridge or the Trump fridge. And there was a quiz that went on that took place. So many see common trends with political parties on their consumption patterns. And one example was given. Democrats, it said, tend to opt for more environmentally conscious foods, while the Republicans differ from that. Another way in which food is politically tied to a specific party is when there are public records indicating a restaurant chain or food supplier is donating funds to a particular candidate. And we know that happened in some cases. And there's one food chain that I recall sort of tied itself to a particular party as it sold its food and how it governed its employees. I think Chick-fil-A was one of those food chains that had a particular leaning toward a particular party. So these records are for the public and may be seen and discovered on certain political websites. There's a website called opensecrets.org. And you can look on there and kind of see what some of those secrets are. At times, the chain itself may not contribute directly to either a Democratic or Republican candidate, but their employees and management can be found donating. So many often associate these contributions as a reflection of the entire establishment, which can be detrimental to the industry as a whole, and specifically that chain as an increased divide among political parties soars. So there's some stereotypes associated with race and gender, as we know. So food can be political in a way as an extension of themselves. Again, Sentimenta said, when we offer someone a taste of our culture, our food, and they are able to consume that dish and see the flavors that make the heritage more rich, it can potentially lead them to be more open-minded about food. So race and the food industry have a long history. There have been years of cultural appropriation and ideas of colonialism within the industry that have negatively impacted those groups. Implicitly, it does harm those who aren't in the dominant group, she said. It doesn't matter if you're in the dominant group in society. If you wield a lot of political power, these things don't affect you and you can carry on. But you don't worry about someone looking down on you, thinking that that's weird or that's dirty. These people can afford to look towards new foods and new foods and colonized ingredients. Okay. So while purchasing items off the shelf, including Aunt Jemima products, cream of wheat, Uncle Ben's rice, and other items of sort, one may be directly hurting that community it is feeding into the stereotypes that have impacted that community for decades, according to Semente. So someone of this awareness is very new to some people, which is coming in light of following the protest, last summer. We know that the company took Aunt Jemima off of the pancake box. They took Uncle Ben off of the rice box, and there were some other pictures of African-American images on certain products that were taken off of certain products because of the whole protests and backlash associated with these products and these individuals. Some of the awareness is very new to some people, and which is coming in light of this new, what they call a wokeness, or being awoke. Same is true for women as well. Women in the kitchen has been a romanticized idea created by men, and this continues their ideal of domesticated companionship. So from decades past, many young girls and women have been targets of campaigns which promote their work in the kitchen rather than a man. We know that's changed a bit. If you look at a lot of commercials now, there's still lots of women in there, but they use women, they use cars, they use horses, using a lot of children nowadays. All of this is designed, of course, to make as much money as they possibly can, but it's also displaying the stereotypes that exist within the community that has been used to sell products. So even the toys that are used in advertisement and toys that are used to sell to children have been a form of advertisement that perpetuates the stereotypes that exist where certain people in certain conditions in society or moving forward or continuing in a way to provide stereotyping. The image of women in the kitchen has been a role that society has embraced for many, many, many years. That is rapidly changing. So there's polarization that has taken place in politics, of course, as the political divide and tensions increase due to recent events. Many wonder if food is a way to unite the masses, or if it continues to emphasize the divide. Well, the messaging about food as a common unifier is surface level and ignores the differences so many people have fought to protect. Again, this is words of Sentimente. So many during the time of the civil rights era used restaurants as a way to polarize the nation on where individuals can eat. Black folk couldn't eat at many, many, many places. And these restaurants became places of nationwide sit-ins where people fought against this divide that had been created. So in today's day and age, individuals are allowed to eat and converse wherever they want to eat for the most part. However, these restaurants contain histories which reflect directly the correlation between food and politics. Again, Sentimente explains ways which food is continuing in the divide, as many are colonizing dishes to feed into the needs, which thus align with their politics and their values. One example she uses includes the heavy value placed on Hispanic food in the American culture, with fast food chains becoming abundant across the United States, such as Taco Bell. While chains and restaurants claim to be authentic or claim to be a direct representation of the actual culture, the people are still behind the scenes being mistreated and mistreated by society that claims to love their food. Similar examples can be seen in the barbecue restaurants and or joints in the Black community that are frequented by major society, much of society, but don't necessarily reflect the people or the society or the culture of the African American community. So food can be assimilated into American culture, but it doesn't not bring a sense of empathy to the people who contribute to the food or to the culture. The way that food has been introduced to us from way back in history is a little different than it is now. As I mentioned, certain foods are pushed upon us every day through serious advertising, through billions of dollars being spent. But I ran across some research that talked about the food that was consumed way back before World War II and specifically during World War II. Salt and sugar are two of the main ingredients in most food. I would say 90% of the food in your average grocery store has ingredients in it that include salt or sugar. Now, there's a lot of other ingredients that's been introduced into the foods that are in the supermarket these days. But way back when, 100 years ago or so, the two main ingredients that were prevalent, that human beings just loved, was sugar and salt. And that combination of sugar and salt now is in most things, most junk food that people love. So back in during the World War II, it's my understanding that the soldiers was given lots of items and food items that contained sugar. They were given lots of food items that contained salt and sugar together. And of course, this Coca-Cola that we drink today, that's advertised every day, millions of times throughout the month and the year, was introduced and back in the 40s. And they made sure that the soldiers drank plenty of Coca-Cola. And of course, that filters over into society, that it was important to have a Baby Ruth candy bar and a Coca-Cola. And of course, Campbell's soup was introduced back then, which has a lot of sodium in it. And so as we look at TV today, please know that politics are involved. The food industry, who is driven by lots of money and lots of politics, or making their money because consumers are consuming what they advertise, without regard in many cases for the harm that it's causing to human beings and children. So in general, when I look at commercials, I look at them from the standpoint of whether they're advertising healthy food or unhealthy food. And of course, many of our commercials, I would say 1 out of every 3 commercials are talking about medication. Selling you medication to make you feel better or to make you well. So I have to do some research and do some scientific research on my own. But I would venture to say that about 50% of the advertisement on TV, excluding commercials about automobiles, are talking to you about food that's going to create problems for you. And the other 50% is talking about medication that's going to solve the problem, which then feeds into the fact that you need to participate, if you can, in the healthcare industry so that you can gain access to this medication. So we're creating commercials that make you sick, and we're creating commercials that's supposed to make you well. And so the economy flourishes. And politics continue to permeate through all of it. So again, your history and your health comes first. This has been Dr. Richard Brown, and I'll see you around.
This has been Your History and Health Comes First with Dr. Richard Brown. And you can leave suggestions at ewcfacts@gmail.com. That's ewcfacts@gmail.com. This has been an EWC Communication production.